All right. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher kitanu b'mitzvotav v'tzivanu la'asok b'divrei Torah. Praise to you, Lord our God, ruler of the universe, who has made us holy with your commandments and commanded us to busy ourselves with the words of Torah. So, our topic this evening, in honor of Tu B'Shvat, is the story of Honi. Honi is sometimes referred to as Honi HaMe'agel, Honi the Circle Drawer. And he lived in the land of Israel around the time of Human ben Shetach, which puts him at 75 BCE. Herb, would you read our prologue, please?
The Mishnah relates an incident occurred in which the people said to Honi HaMe'agel, "Pray that rain should fall." He said to them, "Go out and bring in the clay ovens used to roast the Paschal lambs, so that they will not dissolve in the water, as torrential rains are certain to fall." He prayed, and no rain fell at all. What did he do? He drew a circle on the ground and stood inside it and said before God, "Master of the universe, your children have turned their faces toward me, as I am like a member of your household. Therefore, I take an oath by your great name that I will not move from here until you have mercy upon your children and answer their prayers for rain." Rain began to trickle down, but only in small droplets. He said, "I did not ask for this, but for rain to fill the cisterns, ditches, and caves with enough water to last the entire year." Rain began to fall furiously. He said, "I did not ask for this damaging rain either, but for rain of benevolence, blessing, and generosity." Subsequently, the rains fell in their standard manner, but continued unabated, filling the city with water until all the Jews exited the residential areas of Jerusalem and went to the Temple Mount due to the rain. They came and said to him, "Just as you prayed over the rains that they should fall, so too pray that they should stop." He said to them, "Go out and see if the claimant's stone, a large stone located in the city, upon which proclamation would be posted with regard to lost and found articles, has been washed away. In other words, if the water has not yet obliterated the claimant's stone, it is not yet appropriate to pray for the rain to cease." Shimon ben Shetach, the Nasi of the Sanhedrin at the time, relayed to Honi HaMe'agel, "Were you not Honi, I would have decreed that you be ostracized. But what can I do to you? You nag God, and God does your bidding, like a son who nags his father, and his father does his bidding without reprimand. After all, rain fell as you requested. About you, the verse states, 'Let your father and your mother be glad, and let her who bore you rejoice.'" Context. This is from the Mishnah, from Masachet Ta'anit, which is about fasting. Fasts were called when there were droughts as a way of hopefully convincing God to send rain. Thus we get to this text about bringing rain. What other things besides rain are not good, both when there's too little and too much?
Thank you.
Heat, for one.
Money. I think money. Too much money has proven not to be so good, and for sure too little isn't good. You know, David, now I know where the saying comes from: don't ask for certain things because you might not like it when you get it.
Be careful what you wish for.
That's right. It happens. That's good.
Suppose you could put chocolate in there.
That's
How do you get too much chocolate?
Well,
Makes you sick.
yeah, we probably could get too much.
Well, maybe.
Attention would be another thing that you could add.
Attention, yeah.
Yeah.
That's a good one.
Too much sun can be bad.
Right, and too little isn't good either.
What about power?
Mm. Mhm. Mhm.
Fried,
What?
fried.
Okay.
Yeah, pride.
Mhm. Probably food also would fit in there because too little certainly, is bad. And if you have too much, people tend to become gluttonous.
Given what people are saying, it seems to me it might be worth considering which things don't meet this, don't have this problem. That is, things in which we could have an unlimited amount or without getting ourselves into trouble. I know that's not the question.
But we can discuss it anyway,
Yeah.
because if it's not this, then it's that. So it's
Well, I had a wise teacher, at least I thought he was wise, who said, all things in moderation, including moderation.
That's good.
What about knowledge? Do you have too much knowledge?
Mm.
I've never had that experience, so I really don't know.
Ask Ecclesiastes.
What about time?
Ooh,
Too much free time can also be bad as too little time.
yes. Definitely.
That's good.
That's a good one.
You could also
I'm
I
not
think
sure if those things in and of themselves would truly be bad to have a lot of, because that would entirely depend on how you use them. It's kind of like an opportunity. I mean, you could have a lot of money, but you could use that money for a bad purpose, or you could use it for a good purpose. But having a lot of it does also give you a lot of potential to do a lot of good with it at the same time. So I don't think it's similar with time. I don't think it would necessarily be a bad thing. Even having a lot of free time, you could then use that free time to do other good things, for example.
Yeah, time is time. It's 5 minutes is 5 minutes, as I've liked what someone mentioned, how you make use of it.
I think we should ask David if it's possible to have too much knowledge. After all, he's the one here who probably has more than the rest of us. He's not answering.
it is very hard to unknow things. So sometimes you know things that you wish you didn't.
Mm.
What about sleep?
That's a good one too.
You'll have to ask Rip Van Winkle about that one.
All right,
That's good.
let's move on to Act 1. There's only one question about this one because it's only the prologue to our actual story for tonight. Oops. Okay, Hinda, would you read our first act, please?
The Gemara relates another story about Honi.
Mhm.
I can't read. Ma'agiel. Rabbi Yochanan said, all the days of life of that righteous man Honi, he was distressed over the meaning of this verse, a song of ascents. When the Lord brought back those who returned to Zion, we were like those who dream. Psalms 126, verse 1. He said to himself, is there really a person who can sleep and dream for 70 years? How is it possible to compare the 70-year exile in Babylonia to a dream? One day he was walking along the road when he saw a certain man planting a carob tree. When he said to him, this tree, after how many years will it bear fruit? The man said to him, it will not produce fruit until 70 years have passed. When he said to him, is it obvious to you that you will live 70 years to expect to benefit from this tree? He said to him, that man, i.e., he himself found a world full of carob trees. Just as my ancestors planted for me, I too am planting for my descendants.
Okay.
Context. This is from the Babylonian Talmud, Masechet Tractate Ta'anit, which is about fasting. It follows the previous story about Honi, which is both in the Mishnah and cited in the Talmud. And it comes because the Talmud was just talking about Honi previously.
Okay. So, thank you. So, stories are not inevitable. Characters and authors make choices. At what points could this part of the story have turned out differently?
How does Honi compare to Johnny Appleseed?
Johnny Appleseed or Rip Van Winkle?
Well, okay, Johnny Appleseed didn't sleep for 70 years, but he certainly went around planting apple trees.
Right.
Honi's
So-
not planting carob trees. It's the other man he ran into who's planting them.
That's true.
His whole attitude could have been, what's in it for me? And why should I plant a tree if it's not going to do me any good?
Honi might have been walking down the road and he might have seen the man and just kept walking.
Or he may not have just kept on, he saw the man, just kept on walking because it wasn't important to him. That's something that many people do. They're planting one thing or another. Maybe it wasn't an unusual occurrence. But I think the man who's told the story knew what he wanted to convey. Whoever authored this was very clear which direction it was going to go. If not, why write the story?
All right. Let's go into the next question. There are not a lot of turning points in this part of this text. How is this text relevant to Tu B'Shvat, the new year for the trees?
Stories about planting a tree. Tu B'Shvat is about planting trees.
And the question, why do we plant them? It's not for us necessarily, but for the folks that would be coming along after us, or at least 10, 20 years afterwards.
It reinforces the cycle of life.
Mm-hmm.
And there's something really special about planting a tree in Israel. I remember one of the days we went out and 5 years ago, and we went on that trip with Rabbi Glick. We all planted trees. That was just something really special.
You're helping to reestablish and reclaim the land.
Yes, and my connection with it.
Mhm.
Are you supposed to wait 3 years after the carob tree starts producing fruit before you can actually pick the fruit?
Yes,
That's with other trees? You are. So it's 73 years before they're going to start getting anything from it.
Mm.
Something he plants for his descendants, so he knows that descendants will have something that he left for them. I think it's very nice.
I think there's also an interesting theological relation with Tu B'Shvat in the sense that it also kind of might symbolize humanity's purposes as the caretakers of this creation
Mhm.
by God's authority. So in a sense, us planting the trees is kind of symbolic of us taking care of and repairing this world through good acts. That's how I took it.
And optimism that life will be here 70 years from now, just as it is today, if not better.
You know, that's the question I ask myself sometimes is what I, with my colleague and I do, the civil engineers, we're building things in it. And after a few years go by, it's there. People are making use of whatever it is we built. No one ever thinks about us or anything else. It's just there and everybody's making use of it. So almost everybody's doing that in one way or another.
Once you sign your name to what you build?
Well, it's on some plans, but you know, no one's going to remember. But it's with everything. The professions with the doctors. I was going to dedicate I didn't have time to dedicate my studies this evening to all the doctors that have been taking good care of my family over the years. And so doctors do that. There's always somebody helping somebody else to resolve the issues of their problems that they have.
Recently, when a person passes away, I don't send flowers or that. I plant a tree in a forest that they could possibly visit, because I feel that in planting a tree, that the memory of that person will live, and it would be comfort to the people who lost that person, more than flowers that would die in 5 days.
Right.
And Charles, a person who walks over that bridge may not know you personally built it, but they'll know that there was an engineer who did.
Yeah.
So in a way, you'll still be remembered.
Yeah. Well, so but it's. You know what Hindu was saying. You know, many times one of the things you do is in memory of someone who's passed on, as you said, I plant a tree. It's in Israel. We do that for many of our friends when that happens. So that will give them the same comfort that there's something there. And it's at the same time, if you're identifying with Israel, then you're helping to reclaim and improve the situation there.
And creating new life too, Charles.
Yes. Sustaining and creating.
Yes.
All right, let's go on to the next question. All right. So we talked about this earlier, but in case there are new thoughts on it. The logic, just as my ancestors planted for me, I too am planting for my descendants, can be applied to more than just trees. How have you benefited from others taking this approach?
Even though I forgot most of it, I still remember my Zadie teaching me things like teaching me religious things. It's a very nice memory when it comes up.
I am benefiting from the teaching and learning that David Schwartz has obtained over the years.
Yes.
Even though I think he's not quite the older generation than I am.
And I will publicly acknowledge that I am benefiting from the teaching that my father has done and the learning and therefore the teaching that he has done over the years as well.
Was your grandfather a rabbi or a cantor, David? Or a teacher?
No, my paternal grandfather was a dentist,
Ah.
the first oral surgeon in northern Minnesota after World War II. I had a great grandfather on my mother's side who was a rabbi, Reform rabbi in a number of places, eventually in Baltimore,
Okay.
and wrote a number of books. But the Jewish knowledge base, largely like the not the living a Jewish life, but the textual knowledge and the prayer knowledge started with my father in that chain of tradition. On the other hand, his mother was a Sunday school teacher, Sunday school principal. She was Bob Dylan's Sunday school principal. So I guess I'm a third generation Sunday school principal at this point.
Ah.
All right, next question. If you were to make a tzedakah or philanthropic donation based on the logic, just as my ancestors planted for me, I too am planting for my descendants, where would you give? This doesn't actually commit you to giving anywhere or in any amount, but hypothetically, what would you do?
Well, my parents made sure I got a Jewish education, even though it was a cheder after public school. I would say to give to those institutions that carry on Jewish education.
Keeping in line with donating to other Jewish organizations, I would probably give to Kashet, which does a lot for queer inclusion in Jewish spaces, especially relating to halakhic literature and things like that. So I think it's really important.
I usually give donations usually to many times people who are just starting their medical education, and so it's one way of helping to support some of these people before they're reaching rather medical research, because I'm thinking about people who may not be able to continue the education because they're short on funds for one reason or another. It's much more difficult. So I do that as a way of helping the next generation improve their knowledge and their capabilities to help the rest of us in the years to come. And you could, I also do that sometimes for undergraduate students at my alma mater for the same reason. And by that, I mean mostly engineering students. Yeah.
I belong in Los Angeles. My medical group is Kaiser Permanente. And today I got an email from them. They're asking people to come in and donate, just like you have a blood test, blood, and to give your medical history because they want to use it for research to find cures for diseases.
Mm-hmm.
And since I did not benefit from the Salk vaccine, but my kids did, I'm very much in favor of medical research.
All right, let's go on to Act 2. Alan, would you read this, please?
Honi sat and ate bread. Sleep overcame him and he slept. A cliff formed around him and he disappeared from sight and slept for 70 years. When he awoke, he saw a certain man gathering carobs from that tree. Honi said to him, "Are you the one who planted this tree?" The man said to him, "I am his son's son." Honi said to him, "I can learn from this that I have slept for 70 years. And indeed, he saw that his donkey had sired several herds during those many years. Context. This is the next part of the story. At what points could this part of the story have turned out differently?
Thank
Is
you.
that same donkey still siring herds after 70 years?
It's an old donkey.
The donkey
Not-
could have died, you know, I mean,
Not every tree you plant survives. It's possible the tree might not have survived.
But that the tree will have offshoots, or if the seeds fall to the ground, they'll have new trees to replace it.
I wonder if eating the bread had anything to do with the sleep. Maybe he ate too much. Because the story would be nothing then if he didn't fall asleep. It would just end right there.
Well, I know my son-in-law, one of them, after he has a meal of some sort, he says he goes into a food coma and he needs to take a nap.
Yeah. Yeah, a lot of people have that.
You know, maybe that's what happened to
Too
Honi
much.
here. He just,
Well, perhaps the cliff wouldn't have formed in 70 years because that's a very short time for a cliff to form, I would think. Therefore, you would not have been hidden from sight, and you wouldn't have slept for 70 years.
mhm.
And the carob tree wouldn't be 70 years old.
Maybe it was all a dream.
Yeah. Right.
He slept and then this thing, this cliff around, he's completely isolated. Maybe he's imagining it.
Right, because it doesn't say what happened to any of the other people that were in his life. It just said he slept for 70 years. We don't know anything, you know, very little.
Well, apparently nobody else was sleeping because it was the sun's son. It was the sun's son who was harvesting the benefits of the tree. Everybody else continued, and he stayed. He remained the same.
The only other people in Honi's life that we know were the ones who complained about the rain.
Right. Kind of the whole thing is kind of fantasy.
Yeah. Well, maybe Honi is would he be a fantasy as well? He's in these unusual situations.
All right, here's our next question. This section is cited in the song Yerushalayim Shel Zahav, where it says, Uvtarde mati lan va'even, shvuya b'chaloma. So Yuan is a tree, Evan is a stone, and Chaloma is a dream. So why might this story be relevant in a song about returning to Jerusalem?
Hmm.
You want to go back to Jerusalem and meet Honi when he wakes up. And now if he really is a person.
Well, and people returned to Israel or went to Israel, everything was so different from what it had originally been, where it was just a barren desert. And then now it is a land filled with green and trees, water. And it's such a beautiful song.
What was the period of time between the first temple and second temple?
First temple was built around 960-ish BCE, give or take a couple decades, and lasted until 586 BCE. Second temple was built 500, maybe.
What I'm really asking is, did it last? Wasn't there a 70-year gap?
Yes, there was a 70-year gap when.
Is that what this is referring to?
Yes.
This whole song.
The Yerushalayim Shel Zahav, or
No, in the sense that there's the glory of Jerusalem that was destroyed, and then the glory of Jerusalem that came back between the first temple. The first temple was destroyed, then the second temple comes back. So we're going from glory to glory.
Yes. All right, next question. This section begins with a reference to Shir Malot, saying that being exiled for 70 years, the passage of time was as if they had been dreaming. When else have you experienced much time passing, yet seeming as if very little time had passed? No, I'll leave the question up.
Well, occasionally you get together with a friend that you may not have had any contact with for years, or little contact. And, you get together with them and you just pick up as if no time had passed.
I look at my grandchildren and I still think they were just babies yesterday.
Yes, yes.
And it's 20 years have gone by.
Mm. I just look in the mirror. Lord, I looked in the mirror, I said, what?
That's good, Charles.
All of a sudden, well, something's different.
I'll tell you, Charles, one thing I love about this Monday night class is I've gotten to know you, and it's a wonderful experience.
Right. Well, I think I'll take that as a compliment. Thank you.
It is a compliment.
Yeah.
The only difference, Charles, was the hair color.
No. You haven't seen me close up in the mirror over the years, so no, just that. Just time goes by, you don't realize.
Right.
Sunrise, sunset, right?
Mhm.
Yes.
My brother says that time is like a roll of toilet paper. The further down the roll you go, the faster it spins.
Whoa.
Mhm.
Oh, great analogy.
I mean, so if you're 5 years old, 1 year represents 20% of your life. If you're 50 years old, it represents 2% of your life. It's the perspective.
How do you expect life will be similar and different in 70 years from now?
I won't be here at that time, I don't think.
Tell you how I hope it'll be. I hope that we'll have climate change under control. People who are living then, so that they can live well, have what they need in terms of resources and things that make life viable.
Well, let's hope some folks will still be having children and still prefer eating 3 times a day, and
Yeah.
it's still going to be that same struggle to continue.
Well, we can hope that people will be working together instead of fighting with each other.
Well, let's hope so.
I have my doubts.
Much of that will probably be the same.
Yeah.
I can't quite envision what it would be like in 70 years. I don't think it will be anything I can even come up with now. It'll be very different is all I can think of.
When
We'll
we
probably have
consider-
surpassed electric cars or something else.
Yeah,
Mhm.
flying cars. But when we consider what we remember as children and how it is now, look at the changes. I mean, just the technology changes.
Yeah, change.
Everything was predicted, and so much of it came true. So you can just multiply that. It's hard to imagine what kind of scientific and technological advances will have been put in place by then. It probably will be a whole different world. You know.
Well, who would have thought that you could carry your phone around with you when
Pocket. Yeah.
right, they used to have phone booths and that, and then they, had car phones, and now you carry your phone in your pocket.
Right.
Maybe in another 70 years, it'll just be an implant, and then you won't have to worry
That's
about it.
Right.
Maybe.
Well,
Oh,
talking about control,
70 years ago, I think politicians worked together better than today.
mhm.
maybe. I remember when my father was in the furniture business, and in the late 40s or early 50s, he got a television set for my Bubby and Sadie.
Mhm.
And my sweet little Bubby really got into renting because there weren't too many things to watch, but she was so fascinated that something like this could be in her living room and she could sit and watch it. She would watch wrestling and she'd get it all into it, and she'd say, "Give him a Zets."
Or sit and watch the test pattern until something came on.
Oh, yeah, there were people who did do that.
Yeah, but I
Carol,
mean, just
your grandmother must have been related to my grandparents, because we used to sit in their living room and watch wrestling.
there wasn't much else to watch, but just thinking about those days and how primitive it was in terms of what we know today or what we live with today. So we can't even imagine what it's going to be 70
But
years.
she adjusted to it, Carol. She figured out how
loved
to
it.
do it right.
She loved it. She funny. She's such a sweet, kind, quiet little Bubby, and then but those wrestling things.
Oh, Carol, my grandmother used to like to watch Soul Train, and
Oh.
she would watch that and she'd say, "Schochlin mitten Tuchus."
It's so funny.
Well, I hope in 70 years, the 2 pear trees that we planted in memory of a dog that we had who loved pears, will still be bearing fruit. And that whoever owns our house still gives the fruit out to friends and neighbors and kids in the area.
Yeah.
Put that codicil in your selling agreement.
No, I don't want to make it tougher to sell the house. I just hope that they'll keep the trees and make the fruit available.
Probably will.
All right. We have one more act. Let's see what happens now. Norma, would you read Act 3, please?
Sure. Honi went home and said to the members of the household, "Is the son of Honi Hamagil alive?" They said to him, "His son is no longer with us, but his son's son is alive." He said to them, "I am Honi Hamagil." They did not believe him. He went to the study hall where he heard the sages say about one scholar, "His halachot are as enlightening and as clear as in the years of Honi Hamagil." For when Honi Hamagil would enter the study hall, he would resolve for the sages any difficulty they had. Honi said to them, "I am here," but they did not believe him and did not pay him proper respect. Honi became very upset, prayed for mercy, and died. Rava said, "This explains the folk saying that people say either friendship or death, as one who has friends is better off dead." Oh, sad.
All right.
This is the next part of the story. Wow.
So, at what points could this part of the story have turned out differently?
They could have believed who he was.
Yeah, they could have treated him better.
It's interesting that the story doesn't say whether he ever encountered his grandson. All of the story is, at least as I read it, is his encounter with the people in the study hall.
Well, the other folks said they didn't believe him. His son, and he said, "I am Honi Hamagil." The people who asked about his son.
Oh, okay. I just misread.
Right.
He was talking to the household,
Members, yeah.
but not necessarily to his grandson.
Right. But people forget you.
That is a very true statement even today with what happened during the COVID times. People have forgotten their friends.
Yeah.
I would imagine a world being without friendship would be like death.
This very intelligent, insightful man seems to be unable to think of a way to establish his identity.
Who he
right?
is.
And yet there are all these sages there. I think they're still saying, yes, he heard the sages say, well, whatever that means, there were sages when he was younger. Maybe he was only a brilliant 22-year-old. Maybe it's possible. And but I guess not. And now there are these sages who aren't interested in him. It's very striking that how totally out of place he is in the story.
But the story could have changed, Phil, if he when he went to the sages, if he showed them who he was and what he could do, because they said there was this man who would resolve any difficulty they had, but it doesn't say that he tried to do that.
Yes.
They didn't believe him and he just accepted it.
Should
Well,
have
he
drawn
prayed
a-
for mercy.
He should have drawn a circle around himself.
Aha.
Prayed for rain.
Yeah,
Prayed for friends,
that's right.
but then he might have gotten too many, and then what do you do?
Well, they think if he brought the rain with him, they would have believed him.
Maybe.
Hmm. Sometimes it's hard to convince people. It reminds me of when, after many years, I returned to, I went and visited Costa Rica quite frequently, but I returned to the community synagogue we helped found. I was the first president, one of the founding members, and I came back about 15 or 20 years later, and they had a new building, and I rang the doorbell, looked in, said, hello, I'm here, and they didn't, nobody knew me.
Oh,
I even showed them they had a commemorative calendar, and I was right there, said, here, that's me right there. Oh, people forget. They didn't understand.
Mm.
This reminds me of my situation completely.
they didn't pay you respect.
I'm sorry?
They didn't pay you respect.
No, but I didn't pray for mercy and having, relieving me with by asking to die. I mean, I just finally, I didn't walk away. I just finally talked to them, and eventually there was one person that said, oh yeah, one of my friend's sons was there, or his wife, we didn't know was there. Oh yes, then. But I mean, it seems like this is typical. Time goes by, people are engaged, they forget about who came before them, except in very general terms.
Well, one day I was in the synagogue hall and there was a young woman, probably around 40s, looking at the plaques of the deceased people. And I asked her who she was, and she told me. And I remembered who her parents were, and Phyllis Barron was there that day too. And we took Lynn around and showed her everything, so that she could remember what it was like when she was a little girl. So people could have been more receptive to you. Barry and Ilsa were her parents. And
Yeah, well, I mean, the people who were there were just administrators. They didn't know me.
yeah,
Yeah, none of our friends.
they
Other
missed
become
out
the
something,
source.
Charles, see?
Yeah.
Barry sent a message saying you get respect here, so feel good about that.
Okay. Well, thank you.
And on that note, it is 9 o'clock.
Yeah.